Hi guys, Sandy here, and today we're talking about how much time we spend working. Do you feel like it's too much? Do you believe you could be just as productive if you worked 4 days a week, maybe even 3? If you think so, you are not alone. In fact, more and more voices are being raised about making the work week shorter. Personally, I can say I haven't worked 9 to 5 days a week for over 10 years now and consider myself to be pretty productive, so we all know where I stand on that. But I also know many who disagree, and I can definitely understand their motives. And that's what this video is all about, the pros and cons of a shorter work week. And by the end of it, I hope you will share your opinion on the matter by leaving me a comment below. I would love to start a conversation about it. What do you say? Okay, I should start by mentioning that the 40-hour work week isn't really something that's been done since the beginning of time. It was actually only passed into law in the US in 1940 under the Fair Labor Standards Act. 8 hours for work, 8 hours for rest, and 8 hours for what we will was the motto then. And I know it doesn't sound very fair right now to work 40 hours a week, but it was a huge improvement for workers at the time because since the Industrial Revolution in the 18th century, that many workers were doing 80-hour weeks. That's just insane, right? Or is it? Because let's be honest, for millions and millions of people, their work weeks are far longer than just those 40 hours, aren't they? Particularly with the Great Resignation that's taking the world by storm and all that work that's being left behind by the quitters that is being dumped on the remainers. But that would be a whole other video. Well, it actually is. This one, which I will leave a link below so you can watch after this video, okay? Now, another thing to keep in mind is this isn't something to be considered in a few decades. It is already happening. Spain already announced it will become the world's first country to trial a 4-day working week. The 3-year, 15 million euro pilot project will launch in September. Iceland has tried it with a few companies as well and has declared it was an overwhelming success. Microsoft Japan announced that after implementing a 4-day work week, productivity grew by 40%, electricity use was down by 23%, and 92% of employees say they were happier. Now, I guess a good place to start is mentioning that reducing work hours prevents burnout, which many of those working dead I mentioned earlier are currently experiencing. In fact, 52% of workers have experienced burnout during the last year, and that is a 9% increase for when compared to pre-COVID times. But I have to say, the 43% before COVID is pretty high too. And in that sense, working less hours and having more time for themselves, to rest or do whatever makes them happy would go a long way in preventing these staggering numbers because it allows workers a much better work-life balance and a general improvement in their well-being. Simply put, a 4-day work week means longer weekends. Enough said, right? Now, another major advantage of a 4-day work week that also largely contributes to worker well-being is all that time they get to spend with their family, their friends, and even their neighbors. It means more time to participate in group activities, to engage with the community, and create an overall sense of proximity with those around them. They don't need to cram all of it into those 2 days that go by in a flash. It also means, as we've seen happening for the companies who have already tried it, an increase in efficiency and productivity. People are happier and more focused on the tasks at hand, and this is actually known as Parkinson's law, which states that work expands so as to fill the time available for its completion. So true. Now, let's talk about money and how working less days means money saved on that dreadful commute. And just as important, it's not just the money they save, it also significantly lowers their carbon footprint. Win-win. Another major advantage, one that may not occur to you at first, is that working 4-day weeks improves gender equality. Why? Because traditionally, women are the caretakers, which means that when there's children or other people that need taking care of, it is the woman who puts their career on the back burner to be able to provide assistance. Well, if they have the opportunity to work less time, that may not be such an issue anymore because they will be able to balance things much easier. Also, working less time will also allow men, the dads, the sons, to step up and lend a much needed hand. And this will also lead to another major benefit, which is higher quality, more affordable childcare, because children just won't need to spend as much time in childcare as they're doing right now. Now, companies will be able to reduce costs as well, of course, because not only has it been established that people would be willing to take a pay cut in order to work less days a week, but having one less workday also means spending less in electricity, heating, food and beverage, and other miscellaneous costs. Well, it all sounds dreamy. Everybody wins, the workers, the companies, the communities. So why isn't everyone doing it? Cue the cons. Let's start with an obvious one. Having one less day to work means having less time to fulfill all the duties, which can add to the stress and the anxiety. Odds are people will just end up cramming those 40 hours in just those 4 days, considering how many workers are already working overtime. That's 10-hour workdays, which is insane and not very productive at all. Also, let's not forget, this doesn't suit every business model or industry. You can't ask a train driver to fulfill all their work in 4 days when people need transportation every day. Companies that work 24 hours, for example, would have to hire extra people and spend extra money, which wouldn't work either. But you don't even need to go as far as companies who work around the clock. Overall workforce management would be that much harder to achieve. Can you imagine managing shifts with the exact same number of workers who would work 1 day less? Sounds tricky to say the least. So, with all said and done, what do you think? Is a reduced work week a good idea? Do the pros outweigh the cons? Or do you believe it's just best to leave things as they are? Now's the time to share your opinion. Also, before you go, I definitely think you should watch this video about how wanting to work less does not make you lazy. I think you'll love it. That is it for me today, and I'll see you over there. Bye-bye. Wow. Companies will be able to reduce costs as well because things their parents and the generations before them did so much sooner.